Clock towers were born in the 11th century. They were built to announce an emergency and to inform the locals of a marriage or a death, and even sometimes chimed out to announce the birth of a special person, usually located in the centre of town and built tall for ready access and visibility. There were originally no clock faces, but some forward-thinking designers decided a central tower with a clock would allow people to be on time. It's so much easier to tell the time from a clock face than a sundial.
I did a lot of research, and most of the information I've got today has come from the archives. It's a great resource for doing anything like this, because it makes it reasonably easy to get to the information. And also most of the photographs I've used came from the Herald, which is where it all started, and that's the post office in the corner of the square here in Feilding, and the government built this post office here, and you notice there it hasn't got a clock in the tower. The government, in its usual style, decided that they would build the building and the community would have to go and get their own clock. So that was in 1900. The land was donated by Mrs. Hasty, who owned the Feilding Hotel. And she said you could have the land providing the door to go into the post office was facing the Feilding Hotel. So when she got her mail, all she had to do was walk across the road.
protest.
There was.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we found these clock faces stored in wheat straw, just like that. And there was only one small piece of glass that was broken. Everything else was exactly as it had been stored about 56 years before. So you can go to the next one. So there it is in its dirty state. Now the interesting part of that, it's very difficult to try and work out where things are. This is 12 here. Go to the next one, because I think it shows us. Yeah, there we go. So you've got 12 here and 1 here, 2, 3. Now that's normally 1V if you're talking about those Roman numerals, but it's very traditional, as Ross Smith has pointed out, for clocks with Roman numerals to have 4 of those there.
Too confusing with 6 with 1B.
Yeah, so there's 1,000 reasons why that's like that, but you'll find there's a lot of clocks around the place that has got the IV or the VI, and they normally come from China because they didn't know anything about Roman numerals. But anyhow, we found that, we got it clean, and if you can go to the next one please. That's the bell, and that was just under the floor here at Heartlands. Over to the next one. And that's some of the boxes with all the bits you can imagine. How are we going to make a clock out of that? So we were lucky enough to have a guy called Mike Donoghue, and he had what he called himself Mike Time over in Main Street in Palmerston North, and he was doing all the big clocks in Palmerston North. And so we asked him if he could help us. So we gave him all the bits that we had, and 3 weeks later he rang us up and said, come and have a look and we'll see what it can do. So we went over to his garage, and he had it on 2 44-gallon drums with a very short pendulum going tick-tock, and he only had to make one part that they had missing. The rest of it was all in. So go to the next one please. So that's some of the parts. Go to the next one again. And yeah, she looked a bit funny when we first started. There's all sorts of bits and pieces there. Go to the next one please. The interesting part, he's now got it together and it's going, and this here is the energy spring, because when you go to make the weights, because the weights come up and then they the ones that make it tick tock, while you're doing that there's a spring in there that actually makes the clock to continue to go until you start it again. So it'll go for quite a while. We converted it over to manual raising of the weights by putting an electric motor on it, and so when it gets to a certain point it presses the button, the weights get to a certain point, press the button, and that brings them back up, and it's around about 30-40 seconds, and the clock keeps on going because of that spring inside that thing there. the dome, because it was going to be hugely expensive to make it like the original one, which was copper. And the idea, if you have copper, then it gets, I've got the word here.
Verdigris.
Verdigris, that's right, the verdigris colour, which is a greenish sort of colour that goes to, but you've got to start off with copper. So we went down to the fiberglass developments down here, and they came up with the idea if they could put some copper, what do they call it? Copper grains into the resin when they moulded it, then they ground the resin back so it exposed the copper. And if you go to the next one, there it is, which is quite amazing. Yeah? And that's its colour. It was its colour when we first opened it, and so it is doing exactly what we hoped it would do. It is slowly going darker and is going sort of greenish colour.
If I only had time, only time, so much to do. If I only had time, if I only had time, dreams to pursue. If I only had time, they'd be mine. Time like the wind goes a-hurrying by, and the hours just fly. Where to begin? There are mountains I'd climb if I had time. Since I met you, I thought life really is too short. Loving you, so many things we could make true. Our whole century isn't enough to satisfy me. So much to do. If I only had time, if I only had time, dreams to pursue. If I only had time, they'd be mine. If I only had time, only time.